Hi, this is Remembering the Past, the show where we talk about people who've died recently who've had a profound effect on our history, our society, or our culture. We start tonight with one of our staples, the oldest person in the world, and it was Emma Morano, who died recently at the age of 117. Emma Morano was from Italy. She was not only the oldest recorded person ever to live in Italy, but she was also the last surviving person of the 19th century. She was born on November 29th, 1899. Here is Sky News on the death of Emma Morano.
Breaking news to bring you now, some sad news. We're just hearing by the AFP news agency that Emma Morano, this is an Italian woman, believed to be the oldest person alive and the last survivor of the 19th century, has died at the age of 117. This according to the Italian media. She was born on the 29th of November 1899 and died at her home in Vandellas, northern Italy. She had an extraordinary life, this is a quote, and we will always remember her strength to help us move forward in life. That's from the mayor of Vandellas. So just a little bit of that sad breaking news that Emma Morano, the oldest person alive and the last survivor of the 19th century, has died at the age of 117.
Okay, just so you're prepared, one of these days we're going to be doing Violet Brown, who is now the oldest living person in the world. Violet Brown is a Jamaican woman who is also 117. She was born on the 10th of March, 1900. And I guess there's a subset of people out there who believe that the 20th century didn't begin until 1901. So you might say that Violet Brown is still a survivor of the 19th century. We're going to move on now to a brief mention of Clifton James, who died recently at the age of 96. He was a study in contrast. He was a character actor, and he specialized in playing big-gut Southern sheriffs. He's best known for playing Sheriff Pepper in two of the James Bond movies starring Roger Moore, Live and Let Die and The Man with the Golden Gun, neither of which I thought was a great movie. The reason Clifton James is a study in contrast is, first of all, he was from the actor's studio, so he was actually a fairly classically trained actor. And the second reason was, although he played these Southern sheriffs, he wasn't from the South. He was from Washington State. I'm not going to play anything from that Bond track. Clifton James was very good in limited roles in The Last Detail and The New Centurions, but I'm going to play in my favorite role. He played Charles Comiskey in the great movie 8 Men Out. And here's a scene where he, as Charles Comiskey, is arguing with David Strathairn as Eddie Saccott over whether Comiskey, the owner of the White Sox, should give Saccott, his star pitcher, his bonus in the year of the Black Sox scandal 1919 before they decide to fix the World Series.
You said if I won 30 games this year, there'd be a $10,000 bonus.
So?
I think you owe it to me.
Harry, how many games does Mr. Saccott win for us this year?
29, sir.
You had Kid bench me for 2 whole weeks in August. I missed 5 starts.
We had to rest your arm for the series.
I would have won at least 2 of those games. You knew that.
I have to keep the best interests of the club in mind, Eddie.
I think you owe me that bonus.
29 is not 30, Eddie. You will get only the money you deserve. Anything else?
No, Mr. Comiskey. That's it.
It's one of the best scenes in a great movie, and if you haven't seen it, check it out. We're going to move on now to our feature, Sylvia Moy, who died recently at the age of 78. Most people don't know who Sylvia Moy was, but she was an incredible talent. She was a songwriter at Motown. When Motown was turning out that incredible body of hits in the 60s, some of their other songwriters got all the attention, guys like Smokey Robinson and Holland Dozier Holland. And Sylvia Moy flew under the radar, but she was no less gifted, and her personal project was Stevie Wonder. Sylvia Moy was a nice African-American girl who was born in Detroit, Northern High School. When she graduated high school, she went to New York to be a singer. Didn't work out. She came to Motown in 1964, just as it was really taking off. They made her a record producer, the second female producer after Berry Gordy's wife. Whatever you think of Berry Gordy, he was always looking for diverse ways to use talent, and so he switched Sylvia Moy to songwriting. This wasn't that long after Stevie Wonder had his big hit Fingertips Part 2, which was basically an improv piece, and the company didn't know what to do with Stevie Wonder. He was blind. They thought maybe they'll make him the new young Ray Charles, but they didn't really have a plan for him, and that's where Sylvia Moy took over. With her singing background and her songwriting ability, she wrote with him and guided him through this song, which went to number 3 and was completely unexpected by the Motown hierarchy. They didn't have that song written out in Braille, so she sang it line by line, one line ahead of him. He just followed and repeated every line that she sang. He was such a musical genius that he never missed a beat on it. After that, she wrote this great one for him also.
I was born in Little Rock, had a childhood sweetheart. We were always hand in hand. I was high top shoes and shirt tails. Susie was in pigtails. I knew I loved her in the day. Yeah. Don't you know I was made to love from a world all around her? Yeah. Hey, 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 hey.
Sylvia Moy didn't just write for Stevie Wonder. Here's one she wrote for the duo of Marvin, Gaye, and Kim Weston.
It takes two, baby. It takes two, baby. Me and you. Just take two. It takes two, baby. It takes two, baby. Make a dream come true. Just take two.
He said that Motown didn't know exactly what to do with Stevie Wonder. Another group that they really didn't know what to do with was the Isley Brothers. Isley Brothers were a little harder edged than Motown was used to. And the Isleys never really clicked at Motown, except for this one song that Sylvia Moy wrote with them, teaming up with the songwriting team of Holland, Dozier, and Holland. You'd think with those songwriters and those background musicians, the Funk Brothers, they would have done more with the Isley Brothers at Motown. One of the things about Motown, and I love Motown, is that some of the best songs were not the biggest hits. You know, everybody knows all the songs by the Supremes and the Four Tops and the Temptations. But some of their greatest songs didn't go as high up on the charts as they should have. And Sylvia Moy wrote this one for Martha Reeves and the Vandellas. This is one of their best songs and my favorites, but not one of their biggest hits. And I'll be honest with you, the internal rhyme on this song is probably as good or better than anything Motown ever did, and I believe it's worthy of Cole Porter, and that's high praise.
You're shiftless and you're lazy, just like that hound dog Daisy I had when Grandma raised me. Honey child, with Granny, honey child, your mama drive me wild, and I love you so, can't let go now, honey child. Ooh, sugar child, I wanna be a country mom, just to be with you and say what you like, honey child.
Okay, so you got all those great songs that Sylvia Moy wrote, and none of them was her best. Her best was a true Motown classic, one of the greatest songs Motown ever did. She wrote it for Stevie Wonder in 1969, and when Sylvia Moy was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame in 2006, this was the song that Stevie Wonder sang for. By the way, how many people know Sylvia Moy was in the Songwriters Hall of Fame? I'm going to tell you my personal memory. I was 15 years old. I had a crush on a girl in the summer of '69. And I kept singing this song thinking about her all summer. I've pretty much forgotten the girl today, but I sure remember this song.
Shelly, amor, lovely as a summer day. Shelly, amor, pretty little one that I adore. You're the only girl my heart beats for.
That's as good as Motown gets, and we have Sylvia Moy to thank for it. We're going to move on now to another guy that most people don't know much about, and they really should, and it's Leonard Reiffel, who died recently at the age of 89. Leonard Reiffel was a physicist, and he did some amazing things. Leonard Reiffel was a nice Jewish boy born here in Chicago on the north side, went to Roosevelt High School. So he was a Rough Rider, like my producer Sid and like my mother. I'm not sure we haven't done as many graduates from Roosevelt as any high school we've done on these podcasts. Anyway, Leonard Reiffel went on to study electrical engineering at IIT. Then he went on and studied physics with Enrico Fermi at the University of Chicago. He came back to the IIT Research Institute, which was then the Armor Research Foundation. And in 1958, shortly after Sputnik was launched by the Soviets, he was one of the people responsible for Project A119 with the Air Force.
A top-secret plan to detonate and test active nuclear weapons on the moon was in development by the United States Air Force. Back in 1958, when the Soviet Union and the U.S. were in a nuclear arms race to be the most powerful country in the world, the classified project was in the works to test nuclear weapon capabilities in space. Leonard Reiffel, one of the men who led the Lunar Nuclear Project, known by the non-threatening title A Study of Lunar Research Flights, or Project A119, was interviewed by CNN. Reiffel said, "We didn't want to clutter up the natural radioactivities of the moon with additional bits of radioactivity from the Earth. The plan never materialized because of fears that the explosion might have a negative effect on planet Earth or that the moon would become radioactive. But there were also plans which considered having a nuclear missile launch site on the moon." A young Carl Sagan reportedly worked on the project when he was a recent graduate. Sagan reportedly breached the security of the classified project by mentioning it on his resume for a job application.
Yeah, you don't hear Carl Sagan talk too much about launching a nuclear bomb on the moon. Well, the Air Force eventually scrapped that plan, and a couple of years later, Leonard Reiffel went on to work for NASA on the Apollo program, and he was one of the people responsible for choosing the Apollo landing sites on the moon, including the Neil Armstrong flight. Here he is announcing it in 1967.
As a result of the data we've gotten from Lunar Orbiters 1, 2, and now Lunar Orbiter 3, it's quite clear that we have sufficient information, at least as far as we can tell at this time, to choose the Apollo landing site. We cannot choose simply one because of the requirements of the hardware. We have to rather plan on 3 landing sites during any particular month in which we're trying to launch. For that reason, we have now got in the system actually 8 sites, 8 locations across the moon near the equator, which certainly contain, as far as we can tell, the final landing sites, and on which we will be doing a lot more detailed analysis to locate the specific exact points to an accuracy of a few miles at which the astronauts will be asked to land.
Probably Leonard Reiffel's most popular contribution was yet to come. He was working on a children's television show on educational television here in Chicago, and he figured out how to write on the screen. He invented the telestrator. He gave that to one of the weather people on one of the news channels, and it eventually made its way to the top sportscaster in Chicago at the time, Johnny Morris, who realized what a boon it would be to explaining football. Johnny Morris used it on his cast, and eventually he gave it to its most popular practitioner, John Madden.
The key to that last series was that big 3rd and long play. Let's take a look at it. There are 3 wide receivers. The first guy starts out here, then he works up, then he comes back. The second guy just curls in the middle. It's a short out, then he goes up, then he runs another out.
So Leonard Reiffel was responsible for everything from proposing a nuclear bomb on the moon to making John Madden a household name through NFL football. Well, I'm going to close on that note. I want to thank my producer and IT genius, Sid Tepps. And we're going to close tonight with Annabelle Courtney, who died recently at the age of 97. We did her husband Lauren's obit a couple of months back, and as sometimes happens, she died a little while after him. She was known as Hurry Up Annie. She was a world-class cook and a lover of literature and poetry. She often memorized her favorites and shared them with family, friends, and the little kids she met. She was terrified of water her whole life, but she conquered that fear by taking swimming lessons when she turned 50. Lauren and she were married 68 years. They were avid walkers and ballroom dancers. So to close tonight, we're going to close with a ballroom dance song by her beloved Guy Lombardo and his Royal Canadians. My mother used to love this song too. It was the last song the greatest American composer George Gershwin ever wrote, with lyrics by his brother Ira, who wrote them incidentally after his brother's death as a tribute to him. So for Annabelle, Lauren, and my mom, here is Our Love Is Here to Stay.
But oh my dear, our love is here to stay. Together we're going a long, long way. In time the Rockies may crumble, Gibraltar may tumble, they're only made of clay. But our love is here to stay.